How can I get confident promoting my business and asking for the sale?
Okay, so for me, I have obviously the design and print element of the business and some other bits and pieces. And what I've found is when I'm doing the design and print stuff, I never attach myself to the outcome, and I think that's the really important bit. But so if I'm talking to someone and they're saying, I've started my business, I'm going to be going networking, you go, oh, well, you need some business cards, no brainer. And if you're going to get some printed, I'd recommend you get these ones done. There are these ones which are slightly more expensive. The choice between the two is basically preference, blah, blah, and you just kind of chat through the options. But it's never really, it's just common sense, really. And I think because I think of it in that way, I never feel like I'm selling them something. And so therefore it never feels like an issue with design and print things. It just feels like I'm selling them a product and it makes sense. With coaching stuff, it feels a little bit different, and it is because I'm attaching a different emotional connection to the outcome. It feels like it's more you're selling yourself and you're worried that they're going to say no, and what does that impact have on you? Is it because you're not good at your job? Is it because they don't like you? There's all these elements to it. Are you going to upset them? Are you going to insult them? You know, why have they said no? And also because you then get into that state, you then stop yourself from asking in the first place, because then you're protecting yourself from the potential no, when in actual fact they might say yes.
And I think we can go into those conversations making so many assumptions, or they're not going to buy from us. But like you were saying, they've come on for a reason. They want something from you.
Yeah.
So if you're explaining it all properly, when you get attached to the outcome, then it's just all falls to pieces because you don't know what you're saying. You're not having that conversation properly. And I think what has worked with a lot of my clients, and I've used it for myself as well when I was trying to learn this whole sales process, is thinking, okay, so that's one person I'm actually speaking to right now, and they may or may not work with me. But while they're deciding, I can be going off and talking to all of those other people. So there's loads of other people out there, rather than being, this is the one client, this is going to pay for my dinner tonight. You know, if you can get away from that neediness, I think that makes a really big difference.
Psychologists talk quite a lot about outcome independence in interaction. So when you are focused on the outcome of an interaction, you stop enjoying that interaction, you stop being in the moment. If selling is sort of, in the basic sense, painting people pictures of how their business or how their life or how some aspect of themselves will look after they've had your product, if all you're interested in is in the money, your ability to kind of paint that picture and put them in the moment is taken away. But I think that selling has to be about having a positive mindset. You have to go into it with a positive mindset that this person is interested, that they want to buy, that you can do something for them, that they need your services. And if you go in with those sort of honourable intentions, then selling is a process that just happens. And as you said, Sophie, the kind of order just pops out at the end. They just want to do it. You talk them through options they wanted to buy, and they wanted to buy all along, and they wanted to buy because the first thing that they bought was that they bought you, and they bought the interaction. So I think that's the most important thing with selling. It only becomes tricky when selling becomes something that is seen as duplicitous, or people are trying to sell you something that you don't want, or that that you've got to get into a haggling process, or that we're involved in a sort of Turkish bazaar. I think that's the other side of sales that has been sort of romanticised and demonised. That selling isn't about. Selling isn't about that at all. It's not about the gift of the gab or the...
Absolutely not. And I'd say what you said about actually knowing about outcome independence. So if the outcome is to get the sale and to get the money, that's the wrong outcome anyway. So I do have an outcome when I have a sales conversation. I don't actually see it as a sales conversation. It's how can I be of service on the call? And I've noticed if I focus on being useful and helpful, the sales happen as a result of that anyway. But if I focus on the sale, I'd absolutely be terrible. I would definitely...
It feels icky, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just feels bad.
And I think once you get into understanding the sales process and you know the techniques that happen, it gets even worse, because it feels like you're manipulating the conversation, when in actual fact you're just being strategic with the words you're saying. It definitely can be manipulated, and it is, and I think that's what creates this negative attitude around sales, is because people do abuse it, and you do get missold stuff, and I think that then can make people cagey, but that comes back to the relationship that you have. And knowing your funnel as well, I think, is another one. Funnels are a big kind of buzzword at the moment. But essentially, if I know that I have to speak to 10 people to get one paying client, then I have to have 9 people say no. And so therefore, if I've got 4 in and 4 people have said no, instead of wanting to go and kill myself, and close my business and go and get another job. I just think, well, actually, that's only 4 out of my 9 that I have to get to say no, which means at some point in the next 5, someone will say yes. And trying to remember that, because I think a lot of people don't focus on that. They just focus on, can I make this sale? Can I get this client? And again, you get that needy energy, and I think you then don't perform in the way that you should do, and then you give. Energy is a bit of a woo-woo word, but I really do think it has a massive impact on all of this. Because if you're talking to someone who is chilled out and relaxed, and they're just saying, you need a website, this is what you need, I can do it, it's going to be great, you can go elsewhere if you want, it's going to be cheaper, no problem, no pressure, but if you want this service, which I know is going to give you value, this is how much it's going to be, happy days. They then make a decision either way, and you feel that they're confident, and you feed off that, don't you? They're confident, I'm unconfident, I'm not sure, I'm buying something I don't know about, I'm going to see an expert who knows more than me. They've got this energy that says that they're confident in what they do. I feel comfortable buying from you because I feel you're going to look after me. Whereas if you're in a sort of, well, it should be this price, but I'm going to do it for this price, but if you buy it today, then, it can be this, and it's going to be, and you're giving that kind of scary, needy energy, then the person buying is going to be much more... this person feels like they're really desperate, so therefore maybe they're not the expert that I think that they are, and I don't feel safe. Whereas if you're relaxed and you're enjoying the process and it is natural and you're helping, then it won't help be anything other than positive.
I focus on the outcome though, isn't it? That's like, as we were saying, it's just like a kind of like really like, well, I really want this outcome, I really need the money.
What's nice with websites is that normally you've already had a website, so you can kind of front end with value, because you can say, and just give them a bit of a consultation, you can do this, this and this. And I guess with most of our services, most people have already had a service elsewhere, and you can always front end with value, and then the sale just comes naturally.
And also you talked about how you got 4 no's. Well, they do have a phrase in sales, and that is every no you get is closer to a yes, but all of those no's, they weren't wasted opportunities, they were a chance to practice your objections, to understand where your business is weak. If somebody came to you and they wanted design and they wanted copy as a package, then you can go outside and look for a copywriter to work with, or if they wanted print as well and your print was too expensive, you can look for a print partner. So there's all the things in there, all the time they're giving you feedback, all these processes. It's not just a no, it's a lesson, it's something that you can take and use to improve your business and understand how your sales process is working. And there's no better way to do it, there's no better way to understand where your business is weak and strong than by taking it to a customer and seeing directly what your customer thinks about your business.
Yes, it's feedback, isn't it?
It's the most valuable kind of feedback, because the customer is everything that matters. No customer, no business.
And is it that the customer is a wrong fit for me, in which case the product is sound and I've gone after the wrong customer? Or is it that the product is not sound, and therefore no matter who the customer is, it's not going to be giving them value, so therefore I need to change the product? So there's that element to it as well.
Or the offer of the product, so sometimes it could just be down to the messaging, the copy, the words that you're using to
it makes a huge
position it. It may not, the product may be perfect.
Obviously that's Kieron's zone of genius.
Well, that's what people want to buy. But generally, if you were talking about the sales process, it always will come down to people. It doesn't matter what your message is, what your headline is, people will always buy you first. If you're going to do a face-to-face meeting, all the other stuff is window dressing. How do they feel about you in the first 3 seconds of meeting you? And people will go on that gut decision. How you hold yourself, how you communicate, all those things are just vital in that human relationship, that they spark with you from the moment you first meet, and they like you. I like you, Nathan. I like you, Lomax. I know you're 20 times more expensive than everybody else, but God, man.
People do, don't they?
Thanks so much.
50 websites!
But haven't we all paid more for something? Yeah. Because we liked a particular person and we felt safer buying that.
I'm a sucker for it. The bloke came down the other day wanting a donation for his charity, and I loved his hat. I was like, God, that's a fantastic hat. I was so charmed by his hat that I gave him a subscription for 15 quid a month. I was at the Woodland Trust because I just loved his hat. I was like, God, that's a fantastic.
But that's another fantastic example of the fact that actually it's never really about all the stuff that we build up in our head that it's about. It's just about having something that's
not taking
that create.
There's no sucker for a sale like a salesman.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
I think the confidence around promoting is know your business, because if you know it, you're going to be more confident promoting it, but also work on your confidence. If you have to do 100 sales conversations to get it right, then do that, if that's going to help you be more confident on that call or in front of somebody.
Any
So
confident
it's about
salesperson has done that, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've earned their. People just think
But
you're
not the
naturally
sleazy
confident.
kind.
Don't
I think
they?
you hear salesperson and you just go to that sleazy place, don't you? Where they've just
Shiny suit.
Yeah, shiny suit.
Three different
Sweaty
mobiles out on the table. That's right. What was it, like multi-pack of Red Bull in the car boot?
And maybe I think take away the word sale as well. Just forget that you're selling, you're building a relationship, and just see where that relationship takes you. Instead of saying, I'm asking for the sale, the question is, forget that. Just think, how can I serve this person, like you were saying, Jo? And then, what would be the next sensible step for us to take together?
Also, remembering people's buying styles. That's not to be sniffed at. People might listen and think, what on earth are you talking about? But in the whole NLP thing, you realise that people have different ways that they buy, and it is like a map. And we all recognise it, that you tick certain boxes. So some of us, like my other half, will look for flipping months to buy something. If he wants a car, for example, he will have an exact shopping list of what he wants. And unless it's got every single thing on there, there'll be 1 or 2 items at the bottom of the list which are potential negotiation, but the rest are essential. And it doesn't matter how quickly if it's not exactly right and he's not done and he doesn't feel like he's done the research, then he won't buy it. Me, on the other hand, I only need, I've looked at 3, I'm going to have that one. And that's all I need. That's why sales pages with copy, you've got that whole thing, because you're satisfying all those different buying styles. So understanding the feedback, if someone says no, is it because I didn't tick off all those boxes for them because I rushed them into it, or did I need to nurture them a little bit more? So that is also about paying attention to who your customer is, isn't it? And being aware of the conversation that you're having, so you can measure what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes the no is just not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come back
That's a
to you.
good point.
And often sales is, so they have the famous film Glengarry Glen Ross where the bloke stands up the front and says A, B, C, always be closing. Sales should always be closing, dragging someone into a decision, but actually sales should always be qualifying. So it should be, what do you need to make this decision? So I actually need a full-on spec sheet. Oh no, I just need to see what colours it's available in.
Yeah.
So the client will tell you what they need, but you need to qualify.
Ask
And like
them.
Or in Kieran's case, you've got a nice hat. Deal done.
Oh, no.
That's it. That's all we needed.
It's a nice hat, yeah, that's right. They did this, a survey was done on salesmen to find out whether the most successful salespeople were extrovert and introvert, and they found that the most successful salespeople actually sat right on the line between extrovert and introvert. And there's this sort of real myth that salespeople are these, gift of the gab, flashy so-and-sos who like fill your head full of spiel and then you can't help but buy off them, but there's nothing could be further than the truth. That's not at all how it works. It's never been how it works. It's about finding out what people want and can you deliver what they want and give it to them at a price that's suitable for them.
It's the one of these, two of these, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asking
Certainly
questions.
is, yeah.
So you were saying about qualifying, and actually I think that's really important, because if you are asking questions, it's like using you in the copy, isn't it, instead of I. It's not all about me.
Yeah.
Because as a salesperson, if you go in and say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, it's me, you're not really helping the client. What you should be doing is saying, what do you need? How can I help? What would this do for you? How would it feel if you had this? All those questions that are finding out what the client needs, so then you can guarantee that actually, genuinely, what you're delivering is going to help them, rather than just assuming that they are these particular type of person. It's finding that out.
Well, they say if you make 100 sales calls, 70% of people will be interested in your service, but only 3% will want to buy or have any interest in buying now.
They're big numbers, aren't they? Well, we get hooked up on not selling 100%.
So what do you do? So what do you do with those other 70 people? How do you remain memorable with those other 70 people? Because Ruby made that very good point of lots of people are just not ready to buy now.
Yeah.
So how do you doing that? How are you keeping records? How are you following up? How are you keeping in touch with people with constant emails and having this funnel? Because your audience and everybody you've touched is very important.
But once you've made that
business.
initial contact, your likelihood to buy later is greatly increased, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've certainly bought off an email from someone which I've had for, maybe I get an email once every couple of months, even once every 6 months, and 3 years down the line you buy. You think, wow, it's only because they emailed me that actually I went to them, because they were the first one in my mind over all these other things. I didn't even have to Google, I just went to that one.
Yeah.
But that's relationships though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Christmas cards still is a huge importance in sending Christmas cards and things like that, and reconnecting with people. Absolutely.
All comes down to relationships, always, doesn't it?
Always.
Yeah.